3 sinister true road trip horror stories exposed. Haunted encounters that will terrify you. The Johnson family packed the SUV and set out from suburban Ohio, pumped for their summer road trip. They loaded up with snacks, bags of chips, gummy bears, and fizzy drinks, while an upbeat playlist pumped through the speakers. The sun bathed the sprawling farmland in a golden glow, a picture-perfect Americana scene as they cruised down winding roads, excitement bubbling in the air. But as they drifted deeper into the cornfields and past rusting barns, an eerie stillness crept over them, sending shivers down their spines. It all began innocently enough, yet with each mile behind them, that sooniness slipped away, replaced by a creeping dread. They pulled into a desolate gas station, its flickering neon sign a pale reflection of something once vibrant. Locals gathered nearby, eyeing them with wary glances, whispers spinning between them like cobwebs. The gas station attendant, an ancient man with a toothless smile and eyes like dark wells, ambled over. He leaned against the car, his breath reeked of smoke and something rotten, his words dripping danger. "These roads, they don't like strangers." The Johnsons laughed it off, hearts racing, dismissing it as local folklore. But the chill that followed twisted their stomachs. Suddenly, their GPS flickered, spinning wildly before dying, leaving them vulnerable in the darkness. The car sputtered ominously, and the laughter of their children morphed into quiet whispers, too low to catch. The wind howled like a warning as shadows shifted in their periphery. Tension soared. Children argued about directions, revealing fears simmering beneath their summer facade. Even Jason, their strong father, felt the dread crawling over him, an insistent weight settling in his gut. They were slipping away from joy and into a nightmare, and every wrong turn pushed them further. As day surrendered to a chilling twilight, their SUV gasped and coughed, its engine dying on a forsaken stretch of road. Stranded without a signal or help in sight, panic gripped them. Darkness swallowed the landscape as they started walking, cell phone lights wavering in the abyss. Each echoing footstep felt wrong, fraught with the whispers of past travelers who never returned, figments of legends that merged into their surroundings, planting doubt in their minds. Then, they spotted a flickering light at the end of a dirt path, a dilapidated house that seemed to breathe in the void of night. Desperation urged them forward. They approached the eerie structure cautiously. Something pulsed in the air, vibrating with urgency. They paused at the windows, shadows darting back and forth inside, and dread slithered down Jason's spine. Calling out felt futile, yet they had no choice. The air thickened with unseen eyes watching them. Before they could consider their retreat, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, ethereal and tattered, her eyes hollow but brimming with the pain of countless lost souls. "Help!" Her whispered plea chilled their bones, but it contained no real hope. They realized, gut-wrenching fear hitting them hard, this was not a place of refuge. It was a tomb for the restless. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jason instinctively grabbed his children, heart racing, ready to flee. But the house twisted in a surreal manner, blocking their escape. It felt alive and unkind, with darkness whispering secrets meant to entrap. The shadows closed in, and those hums became an anguished cacophony of lost voices, tugging at their memories. The Johnsons stood paralyzed, their breaths shallow and quick as realization dawned. This was just the beginning of their encounter with the twisted, dark legend that haunted these lands. No escape awaited them as the walls seemed to pulse. They could hear it now, a deafening silence, silence that bled into the very marrow of their bones, as they teetered on the edge of an unspeakable truth. What would become of them next? In the suffocating silence of the crumbling house, the Johnsons could feel the weight of despair settling on them. The walls seemed to cave in, the shadows moving like a living thing around them, hungry for a bond, a tether to this realm. Jason clutched his children tightly, panic clawing at his throat. He couldn't think. He needed to move to get away from this place. Stay close, he hissed, his voice barely rising above the whispers. But his call felt drowned out, lost somewhere in the eerie swaying of shadows around them. He felt watches they were not alone. Maddie, the youngest, clutched her brother Jack's hand, eyes wide with terror. "Dad, I don't like this," she whimpered, barely above a whisper. Jack shot her a frightened look, his small face pale, the innocence of childhood crushed under the weight of their fear. Suddenly, that hollow-eyed woman stepped further into the moonlight. Her gaunt form moved with the slow deliberation of a nightmare, her features sharpened by the pale light. "You shouldn't have come here," she breathed, voice laced with a wispy trail of anguish. The stench of decay surrounded them, curling into their lungs, sending Jason's stomach into a tight knot. "But we need help," he finally managed, desperation spilling from him. "No help." The words floated through the air like tainted fog, wrapping around them. "Not from here, not anymore." Jason stepped back, instinctively shielding the kids. The house creaked ominously, as if mocking their terror. Was it the building that breathed, or were they the ones struggling for air? He dared to glance back at the figure, but the sight made his heart race even faster. The woman's eyes momentarily sparkled with a strange light that sent a cold chill down his spine. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed, reverberating through the walls, shaking dust free from the rafters. Something was inside. Something alive. "There's something in there," Jack cried, his voice edged with panic. He pointed toward the broken door that swayed with the wind, revealing flickers of movement. "Run," Jason shouted. But the words felt futile, swallowed by the ever-growing terror closing in. They stumbled back, a jolt of electricity coursing through the air. As if responding to their fear, a shriek shattered the night, a sound so horrifying it felt like an echo from the grave. The shadows thickened, crawling towards them, threatening to take their footing from beneath. Jason felt the pulse of the house, a heartbeat merging with their steady, relentless, and unyielding. In that moment, Jason knew they were part of a much larger horror. "Just keep moving," he forced through clenched teeth, adrenaline kicking in as the whispers crescendoed into a roar. He grabbed the children, urging them towards the door, but it wouldn't budge. A barrier stood there, unseen but palpable roots of the past anchoring their fate. "Maddie, Jack," he shouted, his heart in his throat. "Don't look back. Do you hear me?" But dread clung to their backs like a suffocating fog. They were nothing more than playthings in a twisted game, and it was a game with no winners. Suddenly, a flash of light pierced through the darkness, a blinding white against the shadows. The woman's gaze met his again, oddly entranced. "You must decide," she whispered, "to leave or to stay, but know this: every choice has a cost." In that moment, the whispers fell silent. A decision hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Did he dare believe there was still a way out? As the light flickered, Jason hesitated. The house trembled beneath their feet. Their terror cascaded into a silence that threatened to swallow them whole. And now, faced with the choice looming ominously ahead, would Jason's family find a way back to life, or become just another lost memory within the walls of this nightmare? Jason's heart raced, caught in a brutal clash of instincts. The house seemed to hold its breath, the thick silence laced with shadows and fear. "What do we do?" he choked out, turning to his children. But the question felt pointless. The answer was blurred, just like the light flickering from that woman's gaze. "Dad," Jack whimpered, clinging tighter to Maddie. Their eyes darted between the fleeting light and the oppressive darkness. The woman's presence had expanded, dark and all-encompassing, as if she were absorbing the very life force from the air. For a fleeting moment, Jason saw the faces of those who had come before, trapped in a dance of torment and despair. Were they alive, or just echoes of the past? "Choose." The woman's voice sliced through the air like glass, sharp and menacing. The pulsating shadows deepened, twisting toward Jason like tentacles reaching for their next victim. Time is fleeting. Maddie nudged Jack, highlighting their father's torn expression. We can't stay here. Her voice shook, yet a nascent strength threaded through the tremor. The weight of their response loomed heavy in the air. Let us go, Jason shouted, tearing his gaze from the ghostly figure. He turned toward the door again, his only chance of escape, but it remained defiantly sealed, coiled against his reach. Each frantic push only slid more whispers through his head, drowning out any sense of strategy. The house groaned beneath their feet, a deep guttural sound that harmonized with their rising panic. It felt alive, maliciously aware of them. Jason jerked backward, stumbling into the anchoring grips of shadow. Daddy, I'm scared, Maddie cried, her small frame shaking against him. In that moment, the father inside of him ignited with a protective rage. Get back, all of you. He barked blindly at the darkness, pushing them behind him. His eyes flung open wide, desperate for anything that looked like salvation. The light flickered again. It blazed with a desperate intensity that illuminated horrifying shapes, faces twisted in agony, mouths screaming without sound. Jason's breath caught in his throat. What is this? He whispered, looking back at the woman, but the fierceness of her gaze was gone, replaced with a haunting sadness. Every choice, she murmured again, it holds what you fear the most, but also what you desire. Jason felt the pull of the decision, leave or stay. The words twisted around him like a snake. Anxiety clawed at his insides. This was no ordinary choice. Memories surged in his mind. A family camping in the sun, laughter echoing in the car, the smell of hot dogs crisping on a grill. What would he sacrifice to cling to that? The light flickered once more, a pulse beckoning him. He raised his hand tentatively toward it, battling the horror enveloping him. Dad! Jack screamed, clutching onto his father's pant leg, desperately trying to pull him back. Don't! It's wrong. But Jason was moving, caught between two worlds. He could feel the weight of their decision radiating from Maddie and Jack. He could see their fear mirrored in their eyes. I don't know, he whispered, feeling lost within the roiling depths of hopelessness. The shadows thickened and swirled, giving life to half-formed nightmares, whispering insidious promises, curling around their feet, inviting them deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, the walls shook violently as if the house itself was displeased. Splintering would split the air. The children yelped in shock, and the floor lurched beneath them like a sinking ship. We're going to fall, Jason shouted, clutching the children tighter. And then, the choice bore down on him like an avalanche. In the midst of the chaos, Jason heard whispers again. Clearer this time, one must stay to save the others. Would he sacrifice everything, or would he relinquish hope? In that moment, the light flickered to an ominous dim, the house waiting, holding its breath, teasing him with possibility. The question echoed louder than the last scream, who would it be? Jason's mind was racing, grappling with the impossible choice pressing down on them. The walls trembled again, and a deep rumble resonated from the foundation, like a warning growl from a sleeping beast roused to fury. The darkness pulsed, thickening like the fog of his worst nightmares, engulfing everything in its path. No, we're not staying, he shouted, desperation lacing his voice as he scanned for any escape route. The children, wide-eyed and trembling, clung to each other tightly. Jack's face turned pale as he looked back at the woman, her eyes glowing with a flicker of malice and sorrow. I see your past, she whispered, the sound causing their skin to crawl. Her head tilted, and in that split second, Jason could have sworn the air thickened, each word a dark incantation binding him further into this nightmare. Snap out of it, Maddie shrieked, her voice breaking through the fog. Jason felt the grip of her small hand clutching his tighter, grounding him. He turned back, something igniting in the depths of his eyes. They couldn't lose themselves. Not here. Not now. Just as the shadows lashed out toward them, the floorboards heaved, splitting, sending them crashing into the darkness below. Jason instinctively grasped his children, holding them tightly against his chest. It felt as if they were falling into an abyss, with shadows clawing at their legs, trying to pull them into the depths. With a loud crash, they landed hard. The impact jarred Jason. He gasped for breath, disoriented. They were no longer in the living room. Instead, they were in a dark, wide corridor, the walls lined with doors, each frame dusted with age. No windows, no light, just the oppressive weight of the house closing in. "Dad, please," Jack sobbed, gripping his father's arm as they scrambled to their feet. Panic spiked. Jason saw shadows creeping under the doors, whispering to him, assuring him there was no escape. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice a low growl of authority that masked his own dread. One wrong decision, and they could be lost forever, consumed by the unholy specter that haunted this house. Maddie's eyes darted around frantically. "We have to pick a door," she said, her voice trembling but filled with urgent resolve. "Why would we do that?" Jason asked, heart hammering. "What if they lead to something better than here?" Maddie shot back. An unexpected wave of strength surged through her, one he'd often seen in her mother. "A choice?" The voice echoed from the depths of the corridor, dripping with predation. "All doors are connected to desires and fears." Jason swallowed hard, fighting the urge to back away. "Is that true?" he asked, looking at the endless doors. Would stepping through one reveal salvation, or would they be torn apart, swallowed by the very thing they feared? "Make your choice," the voice sang. "Stay or leave, the clock ticks." Jack was shaking, staring at each door, terror etched on his small features. Jason's heart sank. He had to act, but each door tempted him with illusions of safety and sweetness. The familiar laughter of camping trips echoed faintly beyond one. A warm glow seeped through another, like the home they lost, while the third door groaned ominously as though it would lead to hell itself. "Which one, Dad?" Jack cried, tears streaming down his face, forcing Jason into reality. The walls vibrated with the whispers, a cacophony growing, and Jason felt their weight. "Whichever one will get us out of here," he shouted, deciding in that moment to take that leap of faith. But which door and which piece of himself was he willing to sacrifice? He stepped forward, heart hammering in his chest. The choice pressed on him, suffocating in its urgency. Just as he reached for the handle, a bone-chilling laughter filled the corridor, echoing ominously around them. "Choose wisely, Jason, or lose everything." Jason's hand froze, poised above the door handle. The darkness around them crackled, and he felt something sinister watching, waiting for his answer. The children's fate rested in his hands, and he felt the weight of their fear, like chains binding him to a decision that could change everything. "Dad!" Maddie pulled at his shirt, panic firing in her gaze. What does it mean? What lay beyond? What would he find on the other side? With dread coiling in his gut, he knew that whatever door he chose would reveal more than just the way out. Would it be salvation, or a deeper plunge into despair? He took a breath. The air felt charged. One heartbeat echoed in his ears. Then he pushed the door open. The door creaked open, revealing darkness beyond the threshold that seemed to swallow the feeble light from the dim corridor. Jason hesitated, momentarily gripped by an unimaginable fear. The shadows inside were thick, almost tangible. "Dad, we can't just stand here," Maddie urged, her voice trembling as she peered into the abyss. She tugged at his arm, pulling him closer to the gaping void. Just give me a second," he snapped, panic making him snappish. But he forced himself to take a step forward. The chill wrapped around him as if inviting him into its clutches. "Come on, Dad." Jack's voice was a whisper now, barely breaking past the knot of fear in Jason's throat. Each second stretched painfully. Every breath was heavy, laced with uncertainty. All right. He pushed the door wider, stepping into the unknown. The scent was rancid like decay mixed with the coppery tinge of rust. With each step down the darkened path, the sound of their footsteps echoed, amplifying the tension tightening around them. The door slammed shut behind them, the noise reverberating like a death knell. "Jason, where are we?" Maddie whispered, fingers trembling as she reached for his hand. "I don't know," he replied, heart racing, forcing himself to move forward. "We need to keep going." The walls loomed closer, oppressive and suffocating. Flickers of movement darted from the corners of his vision, but every time he turned, it was just more darkness. "Look," Jack shouted suddenly, pointing ahead. A faint light glimmered at the end of the corridor. It was golden, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Let us go," Jason urged, quickening his pace. Hope surged, driving them forward through the shadows. The light brightened with each step until it filled the corridor with a warm, eerie glow. But as they approached, the floor began to shake beneath them, sending tremors through Jason's bones. The walls crawled, warping and twisting. Groaning echoed from deep within the structure, a deep rumble like a hungry beast waking from slumber. "No, keep going," he bellowed, adrenaline surging through him, propelling them toward the light. The children followed closely, their fear palpable in the air. The luminous doorway opened into a chamber that felt impossibly vast. Golden light spilled out and illuminated disturbing imagery on the walls. Scenes of despair, grotesque faces contorted in agony, lost souls trapped in an endless cycle of torment. It was a gallery of darkness framed by the allure of that shimmering light. "Dad, I don't like it," Maddie whimpered, stepping back, her gaze transfixed by a horrific figure that seemed to be melting into the wall. "It's okay," Jason's voice faltered, the confidence slipping from his grip. Suddenly, the light flickered, dimming, revealing horrific visages among the shadows, a multitude of eyes staring hungrily. The whispers crescendoed, a twisted symphony of sorrow and pain. It was as if the very essence of the corridor was trying to pull them in. "Step back," Jason shouted, as a wave of darkness surged forward, almost like a living entity seeking to engulf them. In that moment, he felt a sudden tug on his heart, a pull towards the visions of joy and warmth behind one of the walls. A delusion of safety, of laughter, of home. But the opposite wall trembled, a foreboding promise shielded behind shadows. It beckoned, its latent malevolence palpable. The choice lay before him, the doors of his desires and fears merging, interlocking in a cruel twist of fate. "Jason, we have to go," Jack cried, his voice sharp with urgency. The edges of Jason's vision blurred, and his mind raced with what lay beyond. "Go where?" he murmured, torn. The ground slipped beneath him, and just as he staggered back, he realized the shadows were inching closer. Would they devour his children, or would he emerge from this abyss, scarred but alive? With a final surge of determination, he turned towards the flaming light, but the shadows lunged at them. As he reached to grab his children, he felt their small hands slip through his grip, calling for him from the dark. "Jason!" they screamed, their voices echoing in the cavernous chamber. His heart beat wildly. He could only hope as the shadows swallowed the light. Would his next choice be their salvation, or would they be lost forever? In the midst of the chaos and fear, Jason felt a flicker of realization settle in the pit of his stomach. "Which desires can I afford to lose?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the thunderous whispers surrounding them. With no time left, he had to act. The decision had to be made. Now. Jason's heart raced like a drum in the chaos. The darkness surged around them, swallowing the golden light as if it were a candle in a storm. He could barely see Maddie and Jack in the turmoil, his throat tightening in panic. "Hang on. I'm coming," he called, but his voice was drowned by the cacophony of whispers and howls curling into haunting laughter. The walls writhed, casting shadows that twisted into gnarled forms reaching for him. Maddie's terrified eyes bore into his, reflecting a need for safety, a desperate plea. "Dad, don't leave us." Every instinct screamed to flee, yet a strange force pulled him toward the realm of dreadful possibility, the wall pulsing rhythmically with his racing heart. "Stay close." Jason seized his children's hands, the warmth of their small grips anchoring him. Together, they stumbled backward, but the shadows clawed at his mind, unnerving whispers drowning out his thoughts. "What do we do?" Jack's voice cracked, barely breaking through the fear. "Just breathe," Jason shouted, a feeble attempt to rally for strength. But his own breath felt harsh and fevered. The ground heaved beneath them, as if the very structure of their reality was disintegrating. Before them, a crack split a jagged gash of darkness, gaping wide with a hunger that pulsated like a living organism. From the abyss within, more grotesque forms emerged, aimed at their joint vulnerability. Panic surged, and he felt the crushing weight of despair. As he wrestled with his breath, there came a chilling echo from the depths of the chamber. It resonated around them in sinister timbre. "Join us, free your desires," Jason staggered. The oppressive swell of longing floated around him, tempting him with visions of his children smiling, of ordinary days filled with laughter and warmth. Yes, a return to normality. But at what cost? "No," he murmured, gripping his children tighter. He dropped to one knee, bringing their faces close to his. They looked so fragile, marked by the embrace of fear. "We won't give in. We won't, Dad." "Look," Maddie gasped, pointing with trembling fingers. An escape, it seemed. A flickering beam carved a path through the shadows, beckoning them towards it. "What do we do?" Jack echoed, eyes darting between the lights of salvation and the leeching darkness flooding closer. "Run," Jason bellowed, launching into action. The moment hung time fracturing like glass as they bolted toward the faint glow, hearts racing as adrenaline surged through their veins. The shadows howled, angry and relentless, like banshees shrieking for their prey. The ground bucked violently beneath them as they sprinted, an unseen force dragging at their legs. Jason felt the touch of chilling breath slip through his hair, whispering their names. Could they outrun the horrors that pursued? Could he protect his children? Then, a breakout of pale light flooded the corridor as if moonbeams shone through a ruptured sky, illuminating their path, revealing the grotesque forms for the monstrosities they were. Jason pushed harder, desperation fueling each strained muscle. "Don't look back," he urged, the light growing closer, yet the shadows clawed at his mind, their whispers taunting him. Would they ever break free? With every ounce of will, they burst into the radiance, leaving the grasping darkness behind. The light encased them, warm and bright but cloaked in an eerie stillness. Breathless and wide-eyed, Jason glanced around. They were in a completely new space, almost tranquil, but the lingering whispers hung in the air like a sickness. "Where are we?" Maddie asked in awe. Jason felt his stomach knot. They stood at the heart of that vast chamber, but it felt different. The soft luminescence flickered, and they faced another wall, smoothed out yet shadowed with grotesque images of faces. He recognized twisting expressions of himself, of them, contorted in anguish. "Something's not right," he whispered. Behind them, the darkness pulsed, restless. "What does it want?" Jack trembled, staring wide-eyed at the shifting forms. "I don't know," Jason answered, heart aching with a haunting realization. "But we might be the next." A low growl emanated from the shadows, shaking the very ground they stood upon. Jason felt the first tendrils of dread winding around his heart. "No, not this time," he shouted defiantly, but the words felt brittle against the encroaching chaos. In that moment of desperation, Jason glanced at his children, fear etched in their eyes. He felt their courage faltering under the weight of despair. How could he shift this tide? The predatory whisper returned, more insistent now, curling around their steam of thoughts. "Not just your desires, yours too." A flicker of realization overtook him, as panic ignited like wildfire. Their choice loomed before them, heavy and uncertain. Before Jason could grasp the implications, he felt the shadows creeping closer, their outlines sharpening. As Jack let out a shaky breath, Jason realized what he had to understand. Would sating those desires mean losing them? The spectral whispers inched ever nearer, their answers still veiled in darkness. What if we have to choose between them, or something worse? The shadows quivered, thickening like mist around them, obscuring the flickering light. Jason clutched his children tightly, their warmth a fragile comfort in this unfathomable abyss. Every beat of his heart echoed in the stillness, thudding against the suffocating veil of darkness. "Listen to me," Jason said, his voice shaking. "We have to stay strong. Whatever happens, we don't let it take us." Mattias' eyes welled with tears, reflecting the fear that gnawed at his own heart. "What if it's too late?" she whispered. "No." Jason's words burst out, fierce and protective. He felt their resolve wavering under the weight of despair. "It won't be too late. We'll find a way out. Together." Suddenly, the air rippled and a figure materialized in the dimness. It was a woman, her face shrouded in shadows, but her eyes were luminous like the moon behind storm clouds, burning with intensity. "You seek escape?" she said, her voice fluid, honeyed yet chilling. Jason stepped back, instinctively shielding his children. "What are you?" he demanded, though fear clutched his throat. "An echo of what might be," the woman said, still grinning, her teeth sharp and glinting in the darkness. "A guide through desire's door or a keeper of your worst nightmares." "What do you mean?" Jack's voice was barely a whisper, filled with dread. "Desire is a double-edged sword," the woman replied, her gaze locking onto each of them. "You long for a world where pain is absent, where happiness reigns. But," she continued, a sinister smile spreading, "that wish is a dangerous currency here." Jason felt unease creep into his bones. "We aren't here to bargain," he snapped. "Just let us go." "Oh, but the choice is not yours alone," she purred, her eyes flaring like fireflies in the night. "You must accept what lies deep within. One must give, for the darkness hungers. Pleasure or pain, make your choice." Suddenly, the walls shimmered, revealing swirling visions, a swirl of memories. Moments his kids laughing in the park, birthday celebrations, and vacations by the beach. The paradise of normalcy danced before him, swirling about with a seductive allure. He could feel the intoxicating pull. The urge to dive into the echoes of joy weighed on him, but tethering him was the ugly truth. "We can't," he said, forcing the words out. "We won't be tempted." The woman's laughter rang around them, deep and reverberating, like a haunting melody. Such bravery, yet what if surrender means saving them? A cold tendril of dread washed over Jason. His heart raced as he faced the impossible dilemma. Could saving them mean sacrificing his own desires? Or worse, losing them altogether? "Make your choice," the woman whispered, now inches from him, her breath like a winter chill against his skin. In a burst of desperation, Jason turned to Maddie and Jack. "Listen, no matter what, don't agree to anything. Promise me." "Yes, Dad," they said in unison, but the whispers began to escalate. "Join us, free your desires." The shadows thickened around them, curling into familiar faces, friends and family, marked by torment and despair. Jason's eyes widened. They looked so real. The anguish was palpable, a visceral reminder of his failures as a father. His heart twisted with guilt. "No, get away," he shouted, pushing the figures back as they reached out for him, their mouths twisting in silent screams. Suddenly, the glowing figure smirked. "Show them." Jason felt a searing pain in his chest. A decision loomed, and he was paralyzed. His gaze darted between the grotesque visions swirling around him and the pulsing warmth of his children. Time stretched like elastic, trapping them both in an inescapable moment. What if I can give you what you want?" Jason's voice trembled, betraying the shards of hope clawing at his heart. "We all have desires," she sang, eyes narrowing like a predatory cat. "But to gain life, you must forfeit what matters most." A sharp gasp left Maddie's lips. Jason felt her fear snaking around him, squeezing tighter than the darkness. Then the woman teased, beckoning. "Decide, Jason, before the shadows consume you." Despair settled in, and Jason realized in that haunting moment just beyond the blurry edges of their sanctuary. The unrelenting darkness was hungry for their despair. Jason's breath caught in his throat. What would he choose? As shadows curled tighter around him, he sensed the ground beneath them shift once more. Involuntary, the children swayed closer, the very air vibrating with tension. Would he secure their future at the expense of his soul? Darkness whispered cruel promises, and the abyss beyond demanded their destiny. "Dad?" Jack's voice trembled, pulling him from fear's grip. "What do we do?" But Jason stood frozen, dread clogging his thoughts. Decisions crystallized in the echoing silence, pressing upon him like stones. The fate of his family rested in his hands, but the shadows now bright and almost alive wouldn't wait much longer. As the darkness closed in, Jason's pulse quickened. It was no longer just a matter of escaping this realm, it was about what they would leave behind, and whether they'd survive the deepest shadows of desire. The ground trembled as a resounding voice filled the air, commanding them toward an unknown end. Your time is up. Would they find salvation in surrender? Or was surrender the very thing that sealed their doom? The walls pulsed like a heart, throbbing with a life of their own. Jason felt the rush of fear flooding his veins. The place smelled of damp earth and something metallic, something sharp. He instinctively tightened his grip on Maddie and Jack, drawing them close to him. They were all he had left, tethering him to reality in this hellish uncertainty. "Please," he murmured, desperation cracking his voice. "We can't stay here. We have to go." The dark woman watched him, her smile unfurling like a sinister bloom planted in the depths of their despair. "Where would you go, Jason? The exit you seek is a mere illusion. You know very well what awaits you out there." He closed his eyes, trying to block out the haunting memories swirling around him, their laughter seeming like a taunt. But there was no escaping them. They clawed at his mind, vivid and wretched. He opened his eyes, heart racing, scanning the visage of the woman as if she held the key to breaking their curse. "Let us go," he shouted, the power of his voice reverberating against the walls. But the shadows only crept closer, hungry for submission. Beneath the threat, he noticed a flicker of doubt in the eyes of Maddie, now wide with fear. He couldn't lose her. "Look at me, Maddie," he urged, almost pleading. "Remember the beach, the sun on your face, the sound of the waves?" Fragments of joy hung in the dark, fragments that threatened to crumble into dust. "Please," Maddie whimpered. "I just want to go home." The woman's eyes glimmered with a predatory dance as she leaned toward the children. "Home? Can you say you have ever truly felt at home? Not even here." She gestured to the shadows wrapping around them, morphing into grotesque shapes that mirrored their fears. Wails rose from the darkness, almost human yet too twisted to recognize. Jason clenched his jaw, willing himself to think. "What is this? What do you want from us?" "I want nothing but the truth," she said sweetly, almost mockingly. "Isn't that what you crave? To face the very torment you dread? To unearth the darkness rather than flee?" Panic twisted inside Jason's gut, dragging him into a suffocating spiral of uncertainty. He glanced at Jack, who stared wide-eyed, his face pale, washed in the eerie luminescence of the woman's gaze. "Stay close," Jason urged. Then came a voice from deep within the shadows, dripping with anguish. "Jason, free us." It resembled his mother, long lost to sickness and time, calling out with a haunting plea that stole his breath. "We are trapped just like you. Don't listen," he yelled, anger flaring through desperation. "It's trying to trick you." But the shadows twisted around Maddie, coiling tightly. They whispered sweet nothings of freedom, painting promises of safety in a world outside their prison. "Memories can be erased, pain can be forgotten," it hissed, the seductive voice mocking. Dad Jack trembled in Jason's arms. What if we just give in? No. He wanted to scream, wanted to shake them both awake from this nightmare. "I won't let it take you." Despair clawed deeper, shadows pressing in, suffocating his resolve. "You have to choose, Jason," the woman crooned, the power in her voice palpable, drawing them closer to her. "Pleasure or pain? What will you forfeit?" His heart raced, the clock in the darkness ticking down in mocking repetition. Would he abandon them to release his own shadow? Or pull them deeper, plunging into the abyss he feared most? Moments stretched into eternity. Time stopped as he stood in this impossible moment of choice. Hope and terror battled in a visceral struggle. And then, in a blur, Jason felt something shift in the air. A cold gust swept through, pulling shadows back momentarily, revealing a flickering passage behind the wall, a glimmer of could-be escape. As if sensing the opportunity, the woman's face contorted, rage spilling forth like an explosion, her once friendly features now menacing. You think you can escape the truth, Jason? You have no idea how deep the roots of despair dig. Barely thinking, Jason grabbed Maddie and Jack, pushing them toward the passage where fading light beckoned. Now, go. But darker tendrils weaved through the air, chasing after them, grasping, wrenching, pulling him back as they breathed in fear. Don't you want to know what lies beyond? What pain you could be free of with just a touch of surrender? A scream lodged in Jason's throat, trapped between fear and resolve. He knew they had to fight, yet doubt crept in. Could they face what came next? As he felt the shadows closing in, tightening their grip, time slipped through his fingers like sand. Choose quickly, Jason, or suffer the weight of regret forever. With every heartbeat, the darkness writhed. With every breath, dread clawed at them. Were they truly on the brink of escape or merely running from their own terrifying reflection? As the echoing whispers of lost souls rose around them, the question surged in his mind: what would it take to break free from the abyss? What part of them was it willing to consume in exchange for life? The time for choice was running out, and the shadows were hungry. The moment Jason shoved his children toward the glimmering passage, the air crackled with tension. The shadows recoiled only briefly, swirling like smoke around their feet, but hunger in their whispers grew bolder. Fleeing one to save you, the dark woman's voice slithered from behind, her tone a blend of delight and malice. You can't escape the past. Run. Jason barked as the children stumbled forward, the light ahead shimmering like hope through the murky despair. He could feel the cold breath of darkness crawling up his spine, prickling at his every nerve. Maddie hesitated, glancing back at him, her innocent eyes wide with fear. Dad, what if? No what ifs. He snapped, urgency lacing his words. Just go. Jack tugged on Maddie's hand, pulling her along, and they dashed for the narrow beam of light, pushing through the oppressive gloom. Just a few steps behind, Jason could hear the shadows thrumming with rage, the sounds twisting into something more monstrous. Abandon your children. Jason, just let go, they taunted, their voices overlapping like a twisted choir. He could almost see them, dark forms lurking just outside his periphery. Panic burrowed deeper into his chest as they reached the edge of the glow. Suddenly, the flicker of other memories crept forward, clawing at his resolve. He could see crumpled photographs scattered across a basement floor, every joyful moment now smeared with shadow. His wife's laughter echoed, marred by the darkness that had consumed her. No, he snarled, shaking his head violently. Not now. He surged forward, desperately grabbing the kids and yanking them into the light. The moment they stepped beyond the threshold, the passageway collapsed behind them with a deafening crunch, shadows screaming as they imploded into nothingness. Breathless, Jason blinked and they found themselves in a cold, unfamiliar room. It was void of warmth, walls lined with dusty windows. Outside, a storm brewed, lightning flashing in the distance, giving fleeting glimpses of a world just beyond. Where are we? Maddie asked, her voice trembling. Safe for now, Jason replied, though doubt edged in. Panic roiled within him, but he fought to quiet it. They had escaped, hadn't they? But escape meant confronting new horrors. Jack pointed to a door at the far end of the room, which creaked ominously on its hinges. I don't want to find out what's in there, his heart hammered, and a wave of dread washed over Jason as the wind howled, rattling the windows, urging him to move forward. We have to check it out. Maybe there's a way out, he ventured, even as uncertainty gripped his throat. As they approached the door, the air tightened, choking them. Shadows flickered outside, still swirling, a reminder that darkness always lingered. With each step, Jason could feel the remnants of despair following, clawing at him to look back, to relive regrets and losses. He reached for the handle, but something brushed against his skin, a cold presence, tightening its grip around his heart. Jason, it whispered, indistinct voices melding into one. You cannot escape your essence. A sharp chill lanced through him. This was not just a physical journey. It was a plunge into forgotten truths and buried memories. What lay beyond the door could hold salvation or even worse, the ultimate betrayal. "Dad, I'm scared," Jack whimpered, pressing against Maddie. "Me too," Maddie whispered, the light in her eyes dimming. "It's okay. Just stay close." Jason fought to keep his voice steady, though uncertainty coiled tightly around him. And then, against his will, he pushed the door open. The hinges creaked loudly, hauntingly revealing a corridor dimly lit with flickering lights. Murmurs enveloped them, swirling like fog, their meanings lost in the ether. A sudden crash reverberated from behind, echoing the shadows of their past. A reminder that darkness doesn't just fade away. "You're all I have," a voice whispered, eerily familiar yet unrecognizable. It twisted his guts, his face draining of color. What awaited them in this corridor? Would facing the unknown reveal clues towards their escape, or plunge them deeper into the horrors narrowed on their existence? The shadows had followed them, and now they had to confront what they had escaped. Would they discover the truth, or find themselves lost forever in the abyss of their own choices? As Jason, Maddie, and Jack stepped into the flickering light of the corridor, uncertainty clutched at them like a vice. The air felt heavy, and the whispers intensified, swirling around their ears in an endless chorus of dread. This was no ordinary hallway but a space teeming with the remnants of every choice they had ever made. "Stay close," Jason commanded, forcing a calm he didn't feel. Each footfall echoed ominously, bouncing off the aged wooden walls, reminding him of the darkness lurking just behind him. He could practically feel it breathing down his neck. "Where do we go?" Maddie's voice trembled as she glanced nervously at her brother, who looked pale and frightened. The electric tension in the air heightened their uncertainty, and Jason felt the weight of responsibility crashing down on him. He scanned the corridor. Doors lined the sides, each one beckoning with a promise or a threat. "We need to keep moving," he urged, ignoring the foreign sensations clawing at him to stop, to listen to the shadows whispering behind him. The flickering lights cast intermittent shadows, warping reality, making the corridor seem to stretch endlessly into darkness. "What do we do if one of these doors?" Jack began. But Jason interrupted. "No more what-ifs. We stick together. We're gonna find a way out." One door, slightly ajar at the end of the corridor, caught his eye. A faint glow seeped through the crack, illuminating strange figures flickering at the edges of their awareness. It felt like a haven, offering warmth amidst the chill that wrapped around them, promising a glimpse of hope. "Let us check that one," Jason pointed, his heart racing. They pressed on, hurriedly making their way toward it, the shadows slithering closer with every passing moment, whispering promises of despair. As they reached the door, Jason's hand shook as he grasped the handle, balancing hope and fear. He took a deep breath, turned the knob, and swung it open. The light spilled into the corridor, pooling around their feet like liquid gold. Jason stepped through, pulling the kids along. They found themselves in a room clad in soft hues, bathed in warmth. The walls resembled pages from a storybook, crammed with elation, laughter, and moments of pure joy. Pictures of their family scenes from camping trips, birthday parties, lazy summer afternoons fluttered in the air like feathers. "Is this real?" Maddie whispered, her eyes widening at the visions unfolding before them. The room thrummed with happiness, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness they had just escaped. But Jason felt a cold knot of doubt settling in his chest. "It's a trap," he murmured, not daring to believe the solace offered. "It's trying to lure us in." The enchantment of the memories was intoxicating, a dangerous drug to escape into. "What if we just stayed?" Jack's voice broke through, tinged with a yearning Jason could hardly fault. "Do we really have to go back?" A shifting wave of uncertainty lashed at Jason. Longing flooded through him, memories slapping against reality. What if this was their home? What if they could forget the pain, the darkness? But the whispers from the corridor echoed back. "Every choice has a cost, Jason." "No," he snapped, shaking his head fiercely, as if the motion could rid him of the poisonous thoughts encroaching upon his mind. We can't stay. We have to find our way back to reality. To each other. As if triggered by his refusal, the room began to quake beneath their feet. The pictures warped, faces twisting into grotesque expressions that mirrored Jason's fears and regrets. The comforting warmth morphed into icy despair, pushing against his resolve. They're here, Maddie shouted, clutching her brother's hand, her eyes wide with fear. The shadows. The room trembled and fractured. Darkness poured in like ink spilled on a canvas. You thought you could escape? The woman's voice flowed through the shadows, chilling and mocking. There's no refuge here. There's only the truth of your desires. Jason shouted, desperately pulling his kids close. Run. Back through the door. They bolted. Just as the room collapsed in on itself, and the ground seemed to split apart, they tumbled through the threshold back into the corridor. The shadows chased them furiously, their anguished screams swirling about, driving them deeper into panic. With wild adrenaline coursing through them, they sprinted toward the other end of the corridor. This way, Jason called, the urgency trembling in his voice. Behind them, the darkness clawed at their heels, eager to reclaim what had slipped through its grasp. Finally, they reached an enormous door, sturdy and solid, but covered in twisting vines of darkness that pulsed and wriggled as if alive. What is this? Jack shouted, eyes glossed over with tears. Whatever it is, we can't turn back now. Jason reached for the handle, pain shooting through his palm as he forced it down against the dark tendrils coiling around it. With primal strength fueled by panic, he pushed the door open, and a radiant light poured out, filling the corridor like a welcome embrace. It was a landscape they recognized, a sunlit park filled with laughter, friends and family. The vibrant energy of life twinkled like sunlight dancing on water. But the shadows weren't done yet. They surged forward, rushing into the light, attempting to pull Jason and his children back into darkness. Hold on, Jason cried, gripping both kids tightly. We need to jump through together. On the count of 3. Please, don't let it take us. Maddie wailed, her small hands squeezing his. I won't. I promise, he replied fiercely. 1, 2, 3. They leaped into the blinding light just as the dark tendrils lunged for them, a cacophony of agonized screams erupting from behind. They landed in a thud, sprawling onto soft grass. The sun warmed their faces, and the air hummed sweet with life. Felt real. For a moment, joy burst forth among them as laughter echoed in the air. But Jason's heart crashed as he looked around. They were back in the park, surrounded by laughter and love, yet he felt hollow. In his chest, an echo of loss whispered had the darkness followed. Was it truly gone, Dad? Jack's voice broke through his reverie. We're safe, right? Jason forced a smile, but doubt clung to his words. Yeah, buddy, we're safe. Yet, inside where shadows lingered, he knew their battle with darkness would never truly end. Every day they would have to choose to let light eclipse shadow to reclaim their family and victory over despair. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason wrapped his arms around his kids, a fragile warmth enveloping them despite the lingering chill of uncertainty. They had escaped this time, but peace would be a daily choice, one they would have to fight for, together. And as the night fell, the urge to embrace that challenge pulsed inside him. Stronger than any shadow, the undeniable bond of a family refusing to let darkness win. Now, as you feel the weight of this story, don't let it slip away. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that will captivate and terrify. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm. Your support matters. Don't hold back, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how the Johnsons overcame their darkness. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this gripping finale. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.